Hi, everyone. I'm Babs, and welcome back to White Knowledge is Power, Understanding Racism in America and Why White People Should Know Black History. Today's episode is graphic. It's important to me to not shy away from the brutal details involved in cases like this because I believe it's important to know the entire truth about what has happened in Black history in America. Now, if this is too hard for you to watch or listen to, I completely understand. But I do want to honor the life of the person I'm talking about by not trying to break this case down into more digestible material, because what this man went through was one of the most brutal cases I've researched for this channel. That being said, here we go. Today I'm going to talk about the 1998 brutal murder of James Byrd Jr. James Byrd Jr. from Jasper County, Texas, was one of 9 children to his parents, Stella Mae Sharp, who was a Sunday school teacher, and James Byrd Sr., who was a deacon. They both worked at the Greater New Bethel Church. James Byrd Jr. was part of the last segregated class graduated from Jasper Row High School in 1967. After graduation, Byrd married and had 3 children and started a career as a vacuum salesman. Later on, a fall left him disabled. Byrd enjoyed drinking and spent a bit of time in and out of jail for theft, forgery, and parole violation, but as a whole was a very well-liked, jovial member of the community. Byrd has a connection to another horrific instance of racial injustice. His cousin was Danetta Lyles King, who was Rodney King's first wife and mother to his daughter, Laura King. For those who don't know, Rodney King was a Black man who was a victim of police brutality, where 4 LAPD officers beat him hard enough to break his leg, cut and bruise his face, and burn his chest with a stun gun. I can do a full video on Rodney King later. James's friends have said that he was always laughing, doing impersonations, and telling jokes. He was a talented singer, played the trumpet and piano, and would perform at parties, funerals, and other events. On the whole, everybody loved him. On June 7th, 1998, when he was 49, James, who had been out drinking and socializing into the wee hours of the morning, accepted a ride home from 3 white men: Sean Berry, 23, Lawrence Brewer, 31, and John King, 23. James didn't have a car at the time, hence why he was often seen walking around town and would be in need of a ride that night. Berry was driving and knew Byrd from around town. But instead of taking James home, the 3 men drove him out to a rural part of the county road. They beat him severely, spray painted his face, urinated and defecated on him, and if that wasn't enough, they tied his ankles with chains to their pickup truck and dragged him for 3 miles on Huff Creek Road. While he was being dragged behind the truck at around mile 2, his right arm and head were severed from his body when they hit a culvert. The autopsy found that almost all of James's ribs were fractured, but his brain and skull were intact, which leads them to believe that he was conscious for a large portion of this dragging. The 3 perpetrators dumped the mutilated remains of James's body in front of an African-American cemetery on Huff Creek Road and then drove off to attend a barbecue. A motorist found his body the next day. As police began canvassing the area, they located 81 places with James's remains. 81. They also found a wrench with the name Barry on it and a lighter with Possum on it, which was King's prison nickname. The FBI was called in less than 24 hours after they discovered James's remains because of the case's extreme circumstances. I won't spend a lot of time on the 3 men who committed these atrocious acts, but I do want to point out a few key details. Sean Berry was the only one of the 3 that showed any remorse and wasn't a known white supremacist. He was sentenced to life in prison and spends 23 hours a day in an 8 by 6 foot cell. He claimed he tried to stop them from attacking James, but was silenced after Brewer threatened to do the same to him. We don't know if that's actually true or not. The other two culprits, Lawrence Brewer and John King, were known white supremacists and were both convicted and sentenced to death. Brewer was a member of a white supremacist prison gang where he met King. Brewer was labeled a racist psychopath. A psychopath has little to no empathy. They're manipulative and may lack conscience or guilt or refuse to accept responsibility for their actions. The day before his execution, Brewer stated, quote, "As far as any regrets, no, I have no regrets. No, I'd do it all over again to tell you the truth," end quote. Brewer also ended the last meal requests that inmates on death row used to have. You could request whatever you wanted for your last meal before your execution, and the prison would provide that. Well, thanks to this little guy, that is a no-go anymore. This is what he did. He requested 2 chicken fried steaks with gravy and sliced onions, a triple patty bacon cheeseburger, a cheese omelet with ground beef, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, and jalapenos, a bowl of fried okra with ketchup, 1 pound of barbecue meat with half a loaf of white bread, 3 fully loaded fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, 1 pint of Bluebell vanilla ice cream, a slab of peanut butter fudge with crushed peanuts on top, and 3 root beers. When the food was presented, he said he wasn't hungry and didn't eat anything. King had several racist tattoos adorning his body: a black man hanging from a tree, Nazi symbols, the words Aryan Pride, and a patch for the white supremacist prison gang members known as the Confederate Knights of America. The outcry from the public was heard far and wide after what happened became public. Many leaders condemned the action as vicious racism, and national attention was turned to the prevalence of white supremacist prison gangs. 3 of James's sisters, who are Jehovah's Witnesses, released a statement saying, quote, "Having a loved one tortured and lynched produced an unimaginable sense of loss and pain. How does one respond to such a brutal act? Retaliation, hateful speech, or promotion of hate-ridden propaganda never entered our mind. We thought, what would Jesus have done? How would he have responded? The answer was crystal clear. His message would have been one of peace and hope." End quote. Basketball star Dennis Rodman paid for the funeral expenses for James and also gave the family $25,000. Don King gave Byrd's children $100,000 for their educational expenses. James's family created the James Byrd Foundation for Racial Healing after his death, which enabled people from across Texas to call into a hotline if they were needing help addressing discrimination or mistreatment within the state's justice system. They also offered counseling and helped victims gain more attention for their cases. The foundation distributes literature on racial tolerance to schools, provides scholarships, and on the 20th anniversary of James's death, they placed a memorial bench outside the Jasper County Courthouse with the quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." In 1999, a documentary called Journey to a Hate-Free Millennium was created and showcased 3 U.S. hate crimes: the shootings at Columbine High School, the murder of Matthew Shepard, and the execution of James Byrd Jr. It won over 100 awards and has been used in schools as a means to stop hate. In May 2004, 2 white teenagers, Joshua Lee Talley and John Matthew Fowler, were arrested and charged with criminal mischief for desecrating James's grave with racial slurs and profanity. The family had to put up a fence around his gravestone so people wouldn't continue to do that. The Byrd family pushed lawmakers to pass a hate crime law that would make it easier to prosecute other racially motivated crimes, which was not supported by then Governor George W. Bush, because he was of the thought that all crimes are hate crimes. In 2001, Governor Rick Perry signed the James Byrd Jr. Hate Crime Act, which increased penalties for crimes motivated by a person's race, color, disability, religion, national origin or ancestry, age, gender, or sexual preference. A few years after that, in 2009, President Obama signed a federal hate crime act that was named in part for James, known as the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. This happened 25 years ago. This happened only 25 years ago. How many of you learned this in school? This man was brutally and viciously murdered because of white hate, and I'm willing to bet that most people in this country don't know this man's name and what happened to him. This country is under attack. Our education system is under attack. Books by Black authors are being banned. True American history involving our Black citizens is being erased. And it is up to us to keep the information front and center, to speak up and speak out when we see racial violence or attacks occur. One story like this is too many, let alone the countless stories like this that riddle the blueprints of American society. White hate exists, and it exists today. With the Proud Boys in Florida having politicians like Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis giving them the go-ahead to spew their hate, or at the very least not condemning it loud and clear. With the gun violence against Black citizens living their everyday lives, a la A.J. Owens, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Cyrus Carmack Belton, Trayvon Martin, the victims of the shooting in Buffalo, and so many more. With the fact that sundown towns still exist, it's clear that we still have a major white supremacy issue in the United States. How many more deaths will it take for this nation to wake up? How many more innocent Black lives have to be lost for our nation and government to do more, to do the bare minimum that should be afforded to all American citizens and human beings? How much longer do we expect and want Black people to live in fear that this trip to the store or this run or this family trip across country could be their last? It's time to decide what side of history you're going to be on. Don't rely on others. Don't rely on your family or your friends. Don't think that the government's going to do it for you. You must decide where you will stand. It's not enough to just sit by and agree in silence. Send this video or others like it to your friends and family and have the hard, uncomfortable conversations. This isn't some talking point. This is reality, and it's happening now. What will you tell your children and future generations when they come to you and ask what you did to fight against the hate of racism in America? I hope your answer is one that you can be proud of. Thank you for watching. I know this was a tough one and difficult to get through. It was brutal, vicious, and inhumane, but it's important that we know. It's vital we truly understand the landscape of this country and what we need to do to ensure true equality for the land of the free.